Okay. Hello and welcome to this Education Perfect webinar. My name's John Davison. I'm one of the science teachers working for Education Perfect, and we're going to talk about some science content today. And with me is another science teacher, Kirsty Mills. Kirsty.
Thank you, John. I'm one of John's science teacher colleagues at Education Perfect, just across the waterway over in New Zealand. So I'm excited to see what's new for Australia. Thank you, John.
Sure. So let's take a look at what's happening in Australia. Uh, we're very lucky. We have a wide range of content available for teachers in Australia, and at the moment, we're taking that content through a complete metamorphosis, is the scientific term for it, I guess,
App science
where we're
description.
changing. Sorry, Kirsty.
App science description.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll take a look at the butterfly that's emerging. Um, so we're going through a complete refresh of all our science content here in Australia, and I think the last count was about 330 new lessons across the curriculum, and knocking on for about 80 brand new investigations built into that as well. So there's a lot going on. So that as you start to look at the Australian content, whether you're looking at the Victorian curriculum or the Australian curriculum uh, more broadly, we can start to see some of those units already showing that they have been updated as we go through the different year levels. And that means then that there's a number of changes to the way that teachers can use that Education Perfect content. If I just give you one or two highlights, each of the topics now has a dedicated topic assessment, and those are dynamic assessments, so they're built around a question bank, which means you can use them multiple times.
Good for the
Also,
readiness and the summative and some check-ins on the way.
absolutely. So we're talking about using them multiple times to do pre-testing, post-testing, so readiness assessment, summative assessment, and formative assessment as you go as well. Nothing's changed in the way that you can use the content flexibly as well. So there's nothing stopping you using the existing content lessons as quick quizzes, as formative assessment as you go through. And all of those will continue to give all those recommendations for further work, so you can very quickly build up an individualized learning pathway for your students. So nothing's changing in that. Um, the the lessons themselves, though, within a topic are themed now, so that we're looking at, in this case, cells, and we're looking at the Body Olympics. So we've got a theme that runs through these topics, which helps guide students through some of those important concepts. We've got image-based glossaries now, dedicated learning objectives and success criteria. Um, Lots more videos, lots more interactives built into the content. So a lot going on, and we'll see that content refresh go through um, as we um, as we continue to update through the next few weeks. And in fact, most of this content I think is due to be refreshed by mid-year.
It's worth checking
Um,
back regularly because those updated tags are just going to keep popping up across lots and lots
Absolutely.
of those folders.
Absolutely. So that means there's a lot you can do um, with EP. It makes it um, even more flexible, I think, in the way that you use this content. AP is designed to work with teachers, as we want to teach, rather than forcing them to teach in a different way. And we were talking earlier about how there's a lot of commonality in teaching science. Science doesn't vary from country to country. Science is science. So the basic concepts don't vary, but the way in which we have to teach it may vary from teacher to teacher and country to country. So your situation in New Zealand, for example, is rather different to mine teaching here in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, when I look through the content on the Australian curriculum, I don't see any key objectives or learning objectives or success criteria that's particularly different.
Yep.
Same with even many of the contexts are applicable. What's really different in New Zealand is how that same bank of content is assessed. So the assessments may vary. The localization of the content will vary, but all of our lessons are editable. Teachers can pick and choose the pieces that they want for
Yep.
guided practice or even for just explicit teaching. And that's going to be those biggest differences when you're flicking from curriculum to curriculum is just the way we've popped the assessments together that kind of really match what the curriculum is going to be assessing at the end and just hopefully make it that bit easier for the teachers, whether they're doing NCEA New Zealand or whether they're doing Victorian curriculum or Australian curriculum.
Absolutely. So that means then that within that content framework, we've got a lot of different ways that we can use Education Perfect depending on our own preferences, our own curriculum standpoint, our own schools' preferences and strategies. And most teachers will be familiar with this sort of depiction of a learning cycle, which encompasses both assessment and direct instruction and individualized practice for students. Um, and if we look at each one of those, we can see ways in which we can use Education Perfect to facilitate each of those ways of teaching. So we've mentioned the assessment side of things with the new dynamic assessments that are coming forward in Australia, and of course, nothing stops you using Education Perfect within as you're going through a unit to do formative assessment with those quick quizzes. Um, is that something that you do a lot of in New Zealand as well, Kirsty?
I really liked the quick quizzes and formative assessment, not just for a snapshot of how students are doing right now, like when we're partway through a sequence of teaching, or whether I'm trying to see are we ready to move on or not, but also just a different way to experience EP. Lessons can be a bit longer, writing can be a bit longer, but the quick quizzes can be quick snapshots and quick and easy ways to use EP within a class lesson. That's just a point of difference then and how they experience it too. So variety as well as really, really rich, useful data.
Absolutely. It's another string, but the fact that you can do something really quickly, almost on the fly, down to the level of entry ticket or exit ticket for a single lesson is useful. I certainly used to use that with my classes, even when setting a quick piece of homework would be use the quick quiz to differentiate that
Yeah.
and use the recommendations that come out of that quick quiz to give students some really targeted work to do. And I guess the same is true when we're talking in terms of looking at the instruction side of things that you can use those quizzes to and the recommendations that come out of them to even target the direct instruction that you go in. So even if you did nothing else with a quick quiz other than look at the recommendations, it would give you an idea of how to modify your teaching practice to really address those areas of need.
Yeah.
I guess that's something that we can look at in other webinars in more detail, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've got areas where we go into breaking down exactly what those recommendations, strengths and weaknesses and reporting looks like, and sort of really going into the nuts and bolts of explicit and targeted instruction more specifically.
Yep. And that leads on then to the idea of guided practice an independent practice leading through to a revision program. And all of that is facilitated by the fact that using the whole suite of tools that we've got within Education Perfect, you can get a really deep understanding of what your students' needs are and really address that in a differentiated way, which is absolutely key to why Education Perfect is so valuable to teachers.
Yeah. And I imagine Australia, much like what I'm used to experiencing with New Zealand, is when it comes to things like the independent practice and revision, I tried to vary my Education Perfect use as much as possible. So I did use lessons, I did use sections of lessons, but I also use lists for skills, conventions, literacy, numeracy within science, um, and use things like parallel papers and past exams and all of those as a whole range of tools in that independent practice and revision. So students could just get a whole suite of content and skills and exam readiness preparation before heading into summative.
Absolutely, and that's not without going being more creative with the way you use EP and start using classroom games and
Yep.
so on. Uh,
Competitions, all of
Competitions,
those things.
absolutely. I guess it's worthwhile mentioning as well, Joel, just reminding people that one of the great things about Education Perfect is that as soon as you've got your classes up on the system, your students have got 24/7 access to all these resources anyway. So,
Yeah.
um,
So even if you're not the most proactive teacher, even if it's because of um, knowledge or time or circumstances, students still have access to the full library
yeah,
and arranged in a way that they can navigate. And if they've finished all the work, if they're a fast finisher and they've finished everything you set for them, including fault recommendations, the system's still going to recommend what the next lesson in the sequence is. So
absolutely.
and they've also got full access to their learning record, so they can revisit independent practice and revision by revisiting lessons you've set them for mastery, improving their accuracy scores and just trying to improve consistently.
Absolutely. So a whole range of ways that um, Education Perfect can be used, and a whole lot of changes to the richness and diversity and interactivity of the science content in Australia that are coming through. As we mentioned, there's lots more in the accompanying webinars to look in greater depth at different aspects of some of those uses of EP that we talked about. But thank you for listening to this webinar. Hope it's inspired you to take a deeper look at the resources that Education Perfect's got to offer.
Absolutely. Thank you for showing us, John, as well.